As you know, I've criticized Hollywood's lack of originality and dependence on franchise films, remakes, prequels, sequels, and reboots of classic movies. But someone recently asked me if there were actually any sequels I liked at all, or am I against sequels completely? Well, no, obviously I'm not against sequels. There's been some really good follow up films over the years, and I think when done right, they can be fantastic. The reason I've been complaining about sequels lately is because we've reached a saturation point with them. There's just too many. Just look at the most eagerly awaited movies of 2018, this list on IMDb. Almost all of them are franchise films and sequels. Black Panther, Avengers Infinity War, Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, Deadpool 2, Solo, a Star Wars story, The New Mutants, which is an X-Men film, X-Men Dark Phoenix, The Predator, Mission Impossible 6, Aquaman, Halloween, 50 Shades Freed, Pacific Rim Uprising, Ocean's 8, which is an all-female follow-up to the Ocean's 11 movies, Tomb Raider, Hellboy, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them Too. I could go on. There's lots and lots more coming here. But if I was pushed to point to a recent sequel that I quite liked, a sequel to an 80s movie classic, I would probably be in the minority here, but I'm going to say Tron Legacy, a movie that didn't get very many glowing reviews and divided critics and audiences at the time. I think this is a seriously underrated film. I'll begin by saying that the original Tron from 1982 never really wowed me, probably because I don't think the script and visual effects were sufficiently developed enough to really sell the concept. But there's no doubting that it was a classic, and there had been nothing like it at the time. It was unique and coincided with the explosion in arcade and video game culture, so it spoke to that young audience in a way that most Hollywood sci-fi movies didn't at the time. Well, Tron Legacy is a sequel that picks up initially 7 years after the events of the first film, and then moves forward to the present day. Jeff Bridges' character of Kevin Flynn became CEO of the software giant Encom from the first film. He disappeared in 1989, and his son Sam was named as the company's primary shareholder. 20 years later, Sam is taking little interest in the company and spends his time pranking the shareholders by releasing their latest operating system for free online. He's approached by Alan Bradley, who is again played by Babylon 5's Bruce Boxleitner. He also portrays Tron and Rinsler in this film. Bradley tells Sam that he received a page last night from his father's old video arcade, which has been closed for years. Sam investigates to find a secret computer system that transports him to the grid, the virtual reality world from the first movie where his father Kevin Flynn was sent. Sam is categorized by the system as a human user and is placed into a series of gladiatorial games against other programs. The system overlord and the movie's villain, Clue, takes notice of Sam and decides to meet him in person. Clue incidentally stands for Codified Likeness Utility. He's become a corrupt ruling program that controls the entire system. He's also a dead ringer for a young Kevin Flynn. The CGI used to recreate Jeff Bridges from the 1980s is okay in some scenes, but generally it's pretty poor. By today's standards, when compared to the incredible recreations of Peter Cushing and Carrie Fisher in Rogue One and Sean Young in Blade Runner 2049, this computer-generated reconstruction of Bridges is just way too uncanny valley. The mouth movements are just really bad, but there are moments when it works very well. What I will say is that the dated CGI doesn't detract from the character itself. He's still unnervingly creepy and very well developed. Sam realizes that Clue is not his father. He dispatches Sam to play a deadly light cycle match where he nearly dies, only for a new female character called Quora coming to his rescue. Cora is an apprentice of Kevin Flynn, and she takes Sam to see him in their hideout located well outside Clue's sphere of influence. The reunion of the estranged father and son is tense. Kevin Flynn reveals that he had worked with Bradley and Clue to develop the perfect system and stumbled across a new form of life that emerged organically from within the grid, a new race called isomorphic algorithms, ISOs, of which Quora is one of them. Clue considered them to be an imperfect aberration and destroyed them all, seemingly killing Tron and trapping Kevin within the grid. The IO gateway back to the real world was closed. Kevin has the original identity disk that can reopen the portal, but fears using it will give Clue the opportunity to steal it and send his army into the real world to take over Earth. This stalemate has continued for 20 years now, and the original page that Bradley received was actually sent by Clue and not Kevin. This was a clever plot by Clue to encourage his son to locate his father and try to get the two of them to make a run for the gate. Sam convinces his father to no longer accept defeat, and after they're ambushed in the End of Line Club by Clue's forces following the betrayal of Castor, a merry chase ensues and culminates in a final showdown. Kevin Flynn defeats Clue and sacrifices himself to allow Sam and Cora to escape to the real world. There's a lot I like about this movie. Firstly, the solid performances by Garrett Hedlund, Jeff Bridges, and Olivia Wilde. The father-son relationship at the core of this story is endearing and heartwarming. Each character is well developed and memorable. But as I mentioned previously, a good film doesn't necessarily always need a groundbreaking story, just a story that's good enough. The plot isn't anything extraordinarily original. What really makes this film for me are the characters, the visuals, and the music. The latter two elements, the visuals and the music, are without doubt the two standout elements of this film because they help to realize the incredible digital landscape of the grid. Similarly to the Blade Runner movies, the soundtrack and the production design are crucial storytelling elements that enable the audience to become immersed within the world of Tron Legacy. Daft Punk produced one of the most original and memorable soundtracks I've ever heard, mixing orchestral music with a retro 80s electronic synth feel. All of this adds to the ambiance of the film and helps to make it a little bit more believable. Secondary characters also manage to shine through, even though they have very limited screen time. The mysterious and enigmatic character of Jem from The Grid, played by Beau Garrett, Cillian Murphy's brief appearance as the son of Edward Dillinger from the first film, and of course, Michael Sheen's fantastically flamboyant Bowie-esque Castor steals the show. It was clear that Disney were aiming this film series to become a trilogy, and I certainly would have welcomed another movie, but all plans for a follow-up seem to be placed on permanent hold. In retrospect, that's probably not a bad thing. This film surprised me with how good it ended up being, possibly because I didn't expect much from it when I went into the cinema, and a third film probably wouldn't live up to my expectations because I'd go in expecting to see something just as good if not better. In the end, what we get here is a two-part saga set 28 years apart, with the second film living up to and even exceeding its predecessor in some respects. A worthy sequel and overall a solid movie that also stands very well on its own.